Martin Cole had been a janitor at Hartwell Technologies for 11 years. Every night, he moved through the empty corridors with his mop and bucket, cleaning floors that would be dirty again by noon. At 53, it was honest work, steady pay, benefits for his 3 sons, Jake, Samuel, and Oliver, all 14-year-old triplets who were growing faster than his wallet could keep up with. The night everything changed started like every other night. Martin pushed his cart through the executive floor, the highest level of the building, polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, offices with names on brass plates that meant nothing to him. The CEO's office was always locked, but tonight the door was open. Martin paused, glancing inside. Richard Hartwell sat at his massive desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. Papers were scattered everywhere. 3 monitors glowed with spreadsheets and charts. The man looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Working late, Mr. Hartwell," Martin said quietly. Richard barely looked up. "Don't bother cleaning in here tonight, Martin. I'll be here all night." "Yes, sir." Martin moved on, continuing his rounds. He was mopping the hallway near the conference room when he noticed something odd. A faint chemical smell, sharp and acidic, coming from behind a utility closet door. He opened it carefully. Inside, a pipe had cracked. Liquid was slowly pooling, spreading toward the drainage system that connected to the main server room 2 floors below. Martin's stomach dropped. He wasn't an engineer, wasn't a chemist, but he'd worked buildings long enough to recognize coolant fluid when he saw it, and he knew enough to understand that if that fluid reached the server room, it could destroy everything inside. He grabbed his phone and called the building's emergency line. No answer. Called security, voicemail. The night guard was probably on his break somewhere, headphones in, completely unaware. Martin looked at the spreading pool, 5 minutes, maybe less, before it reached the drainage grate 3 feet away. He had to act. First, he jammed towels and rags under the utility closet door, slowing the flow. Then he grabbed the fire alarm panel nearby and pulled. Alarms shrieked through the building, lights flashing red. Within 30 seconds, Richard Hartwell appeared in the hallway, alarmed. "What's happening? Is there a fire?" "Not a fire, sir. Coolant leak in the utility closet. It's heading toward the server room drainage." Richard's face went white. "The server room? Our servers contain everything, I know," Martin said. "I've already slowed it down, but I need access to the server room, now, to seal the drainage intake before it reaches. You know how to do that?" "I know where the drainage intake covers are. I've cleaned that room enough times. If I can seal them before the liquid gets there, the servers stay dry." Richard pulled out his keycard and handed it over without hesitation. "Go." Martin ran. The server room was in the basement, 2 floors down. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his aging knees protesting. The hum of servers filled the air as he swiped the keycard and pushed through. The drainage intakes were exactly where he remembered. 4 circular covers set into the floor between the server racks. He grabbed industrial sealant from his cleaning cart, which he'd grabbed instinctively on the way down, and started working. The first intake was straightforward. The second took longer, his hands shaking with adrenaline. By the third, he could smell the coolant getting closer, the chemical tang growing stronger somewhere above him. The fourth intake was partially blocked by a server rack. Martin didn't hesitate. He threw his shoulder against the rack, grunting as pain shot through him. It moved an inch. He threw himself again. Another inch, enough to squeeze through and seal the final cover just as a thin rivulet of coolant appeared at the edge of the floor, inches from where the intake had been. Martin sat back on the cold floor, breathing hard. His shoulder ached, his hands were raw, but the servers hummed on, undisturbed. He pulled out his phone and called Richard. "It's done. All 4 intakes sealed. The leak hasn't reached the servers." Silence on the other end. Then Richard's voice, barely audible. "You just saved everything." 20 minutes later, the fire department arrived along with building maintenance. They assessed the situation, confirmed Martin's quick action had prevented what would have been catastrophic damage. Richard stood in the server room, staring at the sealed intakes, staring at Martin. "Do you have any idea what's on these servers?" Richard asked quietly. "Not really. Company data, I assume. More than that. These servers contain the prototype data for our new medical device. The one that's supposed to revolutionize cancer treatment. 3 years of research, hundreds of millions in development costs. If this data had been destroyed tonight, Richard paused, we'd have lost everything. The product, the company, and more importantly, a treatment that could save thousands of lives. Martin leaned against the wall. Then I'm glad I cleaned this room enough times to know where the drains are. Richard looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in 11 years of Martin emptying his trash cans. Martin Cole, you've worked here since 2014. You make $42,000 a year. You have 3 sons. Your wife passed away when they were young, and you've been raising them alone. Martin tensed. How do you know all that? I looked at your employee file just now, while you were downstairs saving my company. Richard ran a hand through his graying hair. I've walked past you every night for over a decade without once asking your name, without seeing you as a person. Just a uniform, someone who keeps the floors clean. That's the job, sir. Nobody notices the janitor. I noticed tonight. Richard pulled up a chair and sat down right there in the server room, expensive suit and all, on the cold floor beside Martin. Tell me about your sons. Martin blinked. Sir? Jake, Samuel, and Oliver, tell me about them. Nobody had asked Martin about his boys in years, not genuinely, so he talked. About Jake's gift for mathematics, about Samuel's quiet creativity and love of painting, about Oliver's infectious laugh and endless curiosity about how things worked. Oliver wants to be an engineer, Martin said with pride. I told him I'm just a janitor, but he says that's basically an engineer of clean floors. Richard laughed, a real laugh surprised out of him. Smart kid. They're all smart kids, just need the right chances. Richard was quiet for a long time after that, staring at the server racks. What if I told you that I could give them those chances? Martin's guard went up immediately. What do you mean? I mean that this company owes you more than a thank you. Tonight you saved not just data and money. You saved a medical treatment that could change millions of lives. That's worth something, Martin. A lot of something. I'm not looking for a handout. It's not a handout, it's recognition. Richard stood, brushing off his suit. I want to create a scholarship fund. Full ride through college for Jake, Samuel, and Oliver. Whatever schools they choose, whatever they want to study. Martin's breath caught. Mr. Hartwell, Richard, that's too much. I just did what anyone would have done. No, Richard said firmly. Most people would have called security and walked away. Most people wouldn't have known where the drainage intakes were. Most people wouldn't have moved a server rack with their bare hands at 53 years old. You did all of that because it mattered. You acted without anyone asking, without any guarantee you'd be thanked or rewarded. That's extraordinary, Martin. I have another offer too, Richard continued. Head of facilities management, overseeing maintenance for all 12 of our buildings, salary of $95,000, full benefits, no more night shifts unless you choose them. Sir, Richard, I don't have management experience. You have 11 years of knowing these buildings better than anyone. You understand the systems, the problems, the solutions. I don't need someone with a title. I need someone who notices things. Someone who acts when it matters. Martin thought of his boys, of the bills piling up, of Jake wanting to take coding classes they couldn't afford, of Samuel's art supplies wearing down, of Oliver asking questions about colleges that Martin couldn't bear to answer honestly. Can I think about it? Of course. Take the weekend. Talk to your boys. But Martin... Richard's expression was serious. Don't say no out of pride. Pride is important, but it doesn't pay for college. That weekend, Martin sat with his triplets at the kitchen table. He told them everything, the leak, the servers, Richard's offer. Dad, you have to take it, Jake said immediately. It's a great opportunity. But the scholarship, Oliver added, his eyes wide. Full ride? For all 3 of us? That's what he said. Samuel, the quiet one, spoke up. Dad, you've been taking care of us for years, working nights so you could be there during the day, skipping meals so we could eat. This is someone finally seeing how hard you work. Don't push it away. Martin looked at his 3 sons, 14 years old, but wise beyond their years. Sarah had raised them well before she was gone. Martin had spent every day since trying to honor that. You're sure? Dad, Jake said with a grin, you literally saved a cancer treatment that could help millions of people. The least you deserve is a better job and free college. 6 months later, Martin Cole stood in his new office overlooking the campus of Hartwell Technologies. It was small, nothing like Richard's corner suite, but it was his. His name on the door, his desk, his chair, his responsibility. On the wall hung a framed photo of Jake, Samuel, and Oliver, taken the night Martin told them about the scholarship. All three grinning so wide their faces hurt. Richard knocked and entered, coffee in hand. How's the first week? Good, Martin said. Found 2 maintenance issues that have been ignored for months. Fixed one already. The other needs a new part, see? Already earning your salary. Richard leaned against the doorframe. Oliver called me yesterday. Martin raised an eyebrow. He did. Wanted to know if he could intern here next summer. Said he wants to understand how the buildings work from the inside. Martin smiled. That's Oliver. Curious about everything. He's going to be a great engineer. He's going to be great at whatever he chooses. Richard raised his coffee cup. To the man who saved my company with a mop, some rags, and 11 years of paying attention. Martin raised his own cup. To the CEO who finally looked up long enough to see the janitor. They clinked cups. 2 men who'd spent a decade in the same building without truly seeing each other. Until one night, when a leaking pipe reminded them both that the most important people are often the ones nobody notices. If this story reminded you that heroes wear all kinds of uniforms and that paying attention can save more than you imagine, please like and share it. Subscribe for more stories about unsung heroes and the moments that change everything. And comment about someone in your life who does quiet, essential work that never gets enough recognition. Sometimes the person who saves the world is the one pushing the mop.